Welcome back to my garden. Last time I was talking about the whole goat question and where that dragged my mind, sporting accomplishment. But when I watched the replay, as I do before publishing, I like to check just in case I haven't committed some god-awful faux pas. A song got into my head, as they do. Now, I can't say it's a classic, so I need to give a little bit of detail. And it's perhaps not a song title so much as a line within a song. The band in question is Deus, little d, capital E, capital U, capital S, a Belgian alternative rock band, a sort of Tom Waits style, very innovative sort of band. And back in the day, they released an album with a truly wonderful title, and that's why I bought the album actually, In a Bar Under the Sea, and absolutely loved that album. And it had this song, which I ended up using as a sort of audio backdrop for an assembly I was doing at St. Paul's in the British School in Sao Paulo. And the line in question that I kind of was illustrating was, "You've got to be your own dog," or "be your own dog." I think it's something like that. I particularly like that. I like the song. It's a good sort of intro to the whole assembly. And be your own dog is a good concept. And, if you've been following this channel over the years, I'm really interested in this idea of self-actualization. And being your own dog is part of that. Be yourself. Sort of the classic Shakespearean advice, "To thine own self be true." Whatever that might mean for you. And it struck me that be your own dog was a sort of necessary precursor to becoming the goat. And as a little sideline, but this is one of those videos I can tell that is careening off track. Goats, do they feature in alternative rock? Well, they most certainly do. Because if you're a Cake fan, you'd know sheep go to heaven, goats go to hell. But I think in the song, hell is not necessarily such a bad place. I'm not sure. They also have a song, "Satan Drives My Motor," and they're not satanic at all. It's a sort of provocative thing. But that's what you'd expect from a band that has, a rock band with a lead trumpet. Anyway, I digress rather a lot. Be your own dog, be yourself, is a precursor to becoming, a goat. Because before you are truly the greatest at something, you need to find that world where you can truly express yourself, where you are a fish in water. I think I'm starting to push these animal metaphors rather too far, but that's today. And listening and thinking, re-listening to that video and thinking along these lines, it struck me that that's really our big mission. We've got to be our own goats. So the chance of you being the greatest of all time and almost anything that's fairly mainstream is, well, it's not a 1 in a million. It's much rarer than that. But if you can kind of truly be yourself, and by that I mean be that unique expression of humanity that only you can be, where everything, your past, your genes, where life has taken you, is all mixed together, mashed up, and finds its perfect sort of balance in you. If you can be the greatest version of that, well, that isn't such an impossible target, because it's really the only person who can be that is you. So as long as you double down, commit yourself, do what is necessary, be in a continual, a perpetual state of, if not reinvention, but of polishing yourself, not to impress others or for a sort of easily measured cheap form of, or cheap concept of success. And by cheap, I don't mean, perhaps it's not the right word. By cheap, I mean a superficial concept, that's probably a better word, of what success is. If you really double down on being you and work out what that truly means, and you are that in the most spectacular way possible, well, you will be your own goat. I mean, this idea has found one sort of business expression in the blue ocean strategy. You know, swim away from the shark-infested, overpopulated waters, out into the deep blue ocean. Find yourself some space and be yourself. Invent yourself, grow. And that strikes me as being eminently doable. But when we say that it is eminently doable, and furthermore, if you accept that it's actually desirable, that it's a good thing, perhaps you go even further and you start seeing that being the truest, finest version of yourself, the goat you, will involve an element of service, of giving to others, of detachment from your own ego and looking at things in a much broader sense. Well, it becomes a necessary thing that you be your own goat. It gives us almost an element, a sense of obligation, responsibility, that we must be our own goat. And no one likes that sort of pressure. Now, I self-identify with pathological demand avoidance. I don't like people telling me what to do. Anyone or anything. So I don't like this idea, this pressure that we must be this idealized version of ourselves. But I can kind of see how we must. How it is what the world needs, and what is we. Oh, I got a bit jumbled up there. It is what we need. We need to be that version of ourselves. But it's hard. It's a lot easier to be this other version, this, and I'm exaggerating a bit, or not, this manipulated, socially not influenced but constructed version, especially when the zeitgeist is rampant consumerism. And of course, being your own goat is not something that will happen overnight. When we look at our sporting idols, the Kasparovs, the Djokovic's, whoever. They spent decades. They spent decades a decade as a young person, a child and young adult, honing their craft, and then they spent another decade probably. Once they'd sort of reached the upper echelon. Well, I am babbling a bit today. My apologies. Once they've reached the upper echelon of performance, it's probably another decade of leaning in to become the very, very best, and accumulating not so much the accolades, but just generating the weight of evidence and the accomplishments that allow us to recognize them for what they are, the GOAT. And we need to do the same thing, I think, where once we've found our path and we've leaned into it and we've started to truly express ourselves, and that's started to take form, recognition begins, we have to continue to push. And it's obviously easier not to. It's easier to sit back and take things a little easier. Certainly I saw that if I think of when I was a school teacher. At the beginning, it is difficult teaching. And after a while, you develop some chops and you can kind of maneuver your way around. And it's very easy to settle into a sort of routine. You're continually being forced to refresh yourself because you teach new things, you have new students. But the kind of really hard, almost painful work at the beginning of your teaching career that allowed you to overcome the extreme difficulties of being a new, freshly qualified, minted teacher, well, that's gone away, and it's hard to kind of go back to the very beginning and push yourself all over again. It's easier to almost take a counter position. And I think I did that with technology. It was much easier to become this sort of alternative anti-hero rather than embracing the new technology and perhaps leveraging it to my and my students' advantage. And I think we do that in our own lives very often, where it is just easier to be eventually an anti-hero rather than a trailblazer. So there we are, a bit of a ramble, a little bit of elocution fumbling, but I think you know what I'm on about, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. So leave your comments, as always, in that little space below, and if you've embarked on a path towards being your own GOAT, well, share it with the world, or at least this little corner of the world. Otherwise, I trust your lives are filled with joy, and until next time, from sunny Brazil, ciao.